Daniel J. Phillips, we're very proud to call you a born and bred Adelaidean. You're the owner and creative director at Anomaly, and you've just completed your second feature film, Diabolic. And you were proudly one of the five South Australians to represent your film for the Adelaide Film Festival Goes to Cannes. How was that experience?
Yeah, the Cannes Film Festival was a once in a lifetime thing. It was absolutely amazing to go, and just shows you shows you how big the industry really is. I think sometimes we get very sort of isolated and thinking that everything is all in South Australia or in Australia, but we're just a blip on the radar in the grand scheme of things. So very cool to be amongst all that.
Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about your film, Diabolic?
Sure. Diabolic's a supernatural horror film. It's about the fundamentalist Latter-day Saints, which is a cultist offshoot of the Mormon Church in America. And it centers around a woman called Elise who's going through a exposure therapy ritual to understand what her past was that she's forgotten with the FLDS. And through that, some supernatural forces start to emerge and intervene and cause some trouble. So it's a very slow burn supernatural horror, combinations of folk horror as well in there. Yeah, hopefully it resonates with audiences.
No, did you learn a lot from Awoken with them both being horror movies to kind of like learn from things that might have gone like a bit astray with the last film into this movie?
Yeah, absolutely. Awoken was something that, at the time, you only know what you know. And I guess coming out of that, there was so many things I learned about, first of all, how to make a movie. I think everyone's first movie, you sort of feel like it's going to be like a big short film, just a bit longer, but it's a completely different approach and so many different factors there that make it way more complicated than that. And just learning more about story and what really works and trying to really improve as much as I could on the script for Diabolic. So a huge amount of learnings from Awoken coming into Diabolic. Absolutely.
What inspired you and Mike Harding to actually write this film?
Yeah, well, I wanted to do something with a witch, which because there is a witch involved in Diabolic. But every way I had into the story was a little bit generic, a little bit cliched. And my manager in the States had introduced me to another client of his, which was Mike Harding. And his wife, Tisha, who's another writer on the film, she had previously had experiences in the FLDS and she was excommunicated from the Mormon church. And everything about that sort of aspect was super exciting to me. And we were able to sort of put both of those things together. And that's sort of what the film ended up being. So that's sort of how we got introduced and how we worked together. And we were very collaborative on the script. And yeah, Tisha had her input as well. It was great.
Where can we see Diabolic?
Diabolic will be released in cinemas in Australia. We're not sure on the release date yet because we're still figuring all that with our distributor. We only finished the film in February, and it'll soon be on VOD platforms after that. So it's still early days to say exactly where. Yeah, more details to follow.
Awesome. Kind of going back to when you got started in your whole career phase of your life, you studied a Bachelor of Creative Arts at Flinders University. Did this kind of help you get into the film industry?
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't really relish the time studying at university at the time, which was a while ago now, so it's probably changed. I don't really think the course was really very good. They didn't really teach us any practical skills on how to make films at all. We only got to make 1 to 2 short films a year as well, which was really not enough. And also the way that people got selected to various roles. I was lucky in that I got a lot of opportunities to direct at university, but a lot of other people who were maybe not as outspoken or extroverted or what it didn't have the qualities for whatever reason that people wanted to see when they were choosing who was going to direct. I thought it was really unfair for them because they really wanted to direct as much as everybody else. So I think the system in which people got to do stuff was kind of broken. I did meet some people there that ended up getting me my first job in the industry, but there was nothing that came out of Flinders, certainly, that allowed me to do that. So the theory courses at Flinders are really great. I learned a lot about the theory of film. I think that was really interesting and, certainly taught me some things about how to make films, but I think that the practical aspect was really lacking.
People trying to get obviously started into films, what would you recommend them to do to kind of break through into that field?
It depends on what exactly they feel like they want to do in the industry. But I think if if you know what you want to do, I think learning about that role as much as possible by learning from people who are doing it actively and making a living from doing it, people who've done it in the past, really understanding what the role is as opposed to just what you think the role might be. There's a bit of a disconnect between what people think it is and actually working in the industry itself. And just being involved in productions, just, doing what you can to get involved on set, be a production assistant and look at all the jobs that happen and see what you might want to do. Go and work for free on some stuff to start off with, just get some experience and see if it's something that you like. Because I think a lot of people think the film industry is going to be this big, exciting, razzle dazzle, But a lot of it's just really hard work and a lot of stress, long
Nice, yeah.
hours, and it's not for everybody. So yeah, it's a good way to get started, I guess.
What happened between when 9-year-old me asked you where to next to now?
Yeah, well, I can't believe that was that long ago, but yeah, I guess, that was right sort of in the beginnings of COVID, and that really crippled the film industry, much of which we're still feeling the effects of that today. So it was very difficult to capitalize on the success that Awoken had, particularly in America and in some of Europe, to get another film going because film production was very much shut down, and very difficult to get going. So, myself and my management had a strategy to develop a number of projects, and a few of those were close to getting financed and didn't happen. And then Diabolic was something that did get financed and did happen, and that sort of happened at the start of 2024 when all of that started to come together. So it took a good 2 full years nearly, or three full years to get there. And yeah, it just took time. These things take time, and that's sort of what I was doing. It's also growing Anomaly in that period as well, my creative agency and the studios as well. So there was, certainly incremental growth for all of those sort of aspects in that time.
What was it that kind of got Diabolic the green light for funding?
Diabolic was financed through a variety of different sources. So part of it had to do with me going out and raising a whole bunch of private equity funds from private investors. That was probably the main key that got it funded. But, also Sunjive Studios invested, heavily into the project. The SAFC invested in the project, and we're utilizing the producer tax offset like most feature films do. So it was a combination of finance sources. But the big thing that we found that took us a lot of time is we spent a lot of time trying to cast the film, and any producer director who's made a film will sort of smile at this, knowing what a nightmare it is trying to cast your film. Just the way that it works is you have to send out your package, your script, and your offer. You can only send it out to one actor at a time, and sometimes they want 4 weeks to sort of review that. If you send it out to more than one at a time, they get hurt feelings and they don't want to do it because of whatever reason. They like to feel special, I guess. But what often happens is they don't read it and they never even hear about it, and the agent doesn't do their job. So we end up burning, if you sent it out to 4 different people, that's 4 months of time that you've burnt where nothing's really progressed or happened. So one of the key decisions we made was to reduce the budget of the film and cast relative unknowns in the roles that were just really good actors that were really good for the parts. And that allowed us to get the film going and get it financed.
Am I kind of right in feeling that there's a bit of beef between like the casting process and producers?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Agents are incredibly difficult people to deal with, particularly US agents. Yeah, it's very hard to get their attention on things if you're a small independent producer or director. Very hard to get their clients to read anything. It's very hard to get them to respond to emails. Very hard to get them to engage. There's a whole bunch of things that we sort of take for granted. Of most sort of emails you send in Australia get responded to within a few days. It can be 6 to 8 weeks before you hear back from somebody in America, just how slow they seem to work. So that's sort of quite frustrating. And, everyone else just has to sit and wait until we know what's going on. It's not a good part of the process.
The as you've just said, your past like 5 years between our first interview to now have been really jam-packed. What projects are you currently working on?
When I was in Cannes, I was pitching a new project, which is an action adventure movie, which we've already got quite a bit of investment for, which is great. I'm just in the process of working with a writer in the UK at the moment and sort of polishing off the script, and that'll be the next project that I do. I'm not sure when that will go ahead. There's still very early days on that, but Diabolic's yet to be released too. So I think there'll probably be some opportunities that come out of that I'll look at as well. But it just depends on where everything lands. I think my sort of plan at the moment is to see how Diabolic goes, and if it breaks through and reaches an audience and gets me something off that, then great. And if not, then I'll make this film instead. So that's kind of where it's at.
What kind of opportunities did the Adelaide Film Festival Goes to Cannes offer to not only the distribution of Diabolic, but your connections in the film industry?
The AFF Goes to Cannes initiative was great because it got me over there. I think that they were able to do some very good roundtable sessions with some really cool people that I got to meet, which was great. I think in relation to the distribution side of things, they didn't really do much to assist with that side of things, but that's not what they were there to do as well. So it's not like they did anything wrong there. They did a great job. It was more just about putting us in the environment that we needed to be in. It was kind of up to us to get our own meetings. And I think Diabolic was in a unique position because we already had an Australian distributor and a sales agent before we went to Cannes. So it was more about meeting with a sales agent there and talking to some very key distributors in the US while we were there to kind of pitch the film to them. And so, yeah, but it was an unforgettable opportunity. And I'm, forever grateful to the AFF for including me in that. It was really good.
What has been the greatest challenge you've had to overcome?
I don't know. That's a big question. The biggest challenge. I would say for me personally, it's balance. I try to do a lot of things at once. I run an advertising agency, I run a film studio, I've got a film career that is actually working. Plus, somewhere in there, I do have a social life and a whole bunch of other little ventures I'm involved in also. I find it very difficult to say no to good opportunities, and I seem to get offered a lot of good opportunities all the time from some very smart people. So I guess my biggest challenge is balancing all of that and wearing the different hats and making sure that I can give the right focus at the right time to the right projects so that they can achieve what they need to. I often wonder if I had only done one thing, if I'd be more successful at one or the other rather than where I am now. But I think, the balance works for me and I'm able to do a whole range of different things that excite me. So yes, but it's always a challenge, keeping things balanced, always a challenge.
With all the different things you're kind of having to juggle all at once, which you are seeming to do really well, how do you keep level-headed under all that pressure?
I don't know. I would say I'm level-headed most of the time. I think sometimes, like everybody, things certainly affect us all. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just about having a process to solve problems. I think ultimately everything that I do revolves around problem solving. Whether it's a creative challenge or a business challenge or whatever it might be. So I think, sometimes problems feel insurmountable or massive or the end of the world. And I think trying to just give yourself a beat to think through it and break it down into smaller chunks so you can attack them one at a time, prioritize the sort of things that I do to manage everything are not new ideas. They're just kind of the challenge is not knowing what to do. It's kind of having the space and the time and the discipline to do it more so than anything. So, yeah.
With all your experience, what advice would you give to budding filmmakers?
I think don't believe anything that anyone says about the industry being in big trouble or anything like that. I think the entire time I've been in the industry, they've always said that. So it's like, oh, streaming's coming in, it's the end of the industry. Oh, film's got, digital's coming in, it's the end of the industry. The industry is always going to have challenges, and it's a tough time right now because people are not embracing a new way of doing things. They're trying to hang on to a way that it used to be, kind of pre-COVID, really. And, the businesses can sort of hang on for a few years if they're in trouble in the film industry, but not forever. And I think that's where the squeeze is coming from, is that there's lots of pressure to do things a different way, and people are really pushing against that because they want to do it another way. But I think that film is always going to be a commercially driven enterprise because of how expensive it is, and the market will kind of dictate what they want and where it needs to land and where people can fit in. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you really want to do it, go and do it. And I think don't wait for permission from anybody to do it. Don't wait for, there's never going to be a time in the news and they go, the film industry is so easy to get into and it's fantastic and everything's easy, and that's never going to happen, right? So it's like, there's never going to be a good time. So you just got to get in and do it and do what makes you happy.
With talking about we're kind of holding on to the pre-COVID ways of filmmaking, what impact do you think AI will have on the film industry?
Yeah, AI is a touchy subject for the film industry in particular. It's obviously being very well embraced by other types of industries and business, but the creative industries, not so much. And I think that's really valid. I think that there's a lot of pushback for very good reasons. I think that there's some things that AI can be good for as tools in the film industry and some things that it shouldn't be. But I do think it's like the adoption of any new technology that comes into any industry, is that change is scary and change is hard. I think that inevitably AI is going to completely change the film industry, and there is nothing anyone can do to stop that. And eventually people will start embracing it. They will have to. But at the moment, everyone's afraid to do that because they don't want to be seen to be taking people's jobs, basically, which is ultimately what the result will be. So I think that it shouldn't do things like write scripts. I don't think it should be involved in the creative aspects of filmmaking. But I do think, like any tool that's being used, whether it's a spreadsheet rather rather than writing things on paper, or if it's AI doing some processes. I think the goal of AI should be to help people have more time to be creative rather than taking away the creative aspects of the art form. That's where I think it should go. The issue is that to pay people to do creative aspects of the art form is very expensive at the moment. And that's why a lot of the bigger companies are trying to embrace AI. It makes total sense why they're doing it. So I think that the pushback needs to be unified from the industry and selling the value of paying more for that creative work. It's not just about dollars and cents. It's about making stuff that is better than a computer can make it.
Have you used AI in any of your productions in the past?
No, no. I use ChatGPT just like everybody else, but I mostly use it to convert recipes from imperial measurements to metric measurements so that I can make it in my kitchen. So I think that's something AI is really good for. I remember times when I had to, jump on Google and what's this? How many pounds? How many kilos is this in, in pounds? That kind of stuff. So I think it's good for certain things, but there's not really anywhere that I could see it applicable in the type of work that I'm doing. Yeah, it's not really a tool I want to use.
I think it's great that we have role models for especially kids coming through who are soon going to be adults to remind them that the creative process is for us to kind of do, because that's what makes the film industry great, is because when humans write it, it's relatable to other humans. And if we're just giving all our data on what we know to AI about all the creative aspects, it's just going to kind of take the whole process away from us if it can do the creative side as well as the functional.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Over the holidays, I've been watching a bunch of comedy classics, and the one thing I've noticed is that they're all kind of 2005 or pre-2005. What's happened to comedy?
I think comedy has changed because of YouTube and TikTok and Instagram Reels. I think that people can get a fix for comedy in a different way than they can for something like drama. Drama and other sort of genres require story and time and space, whereas comedy, and obviously there are amazing comedy films that have stories too. I'm not saying you can't have a story for comedy, but you can jump online and be laughing real quick, which is not necessarily something you can feel for some of those other sort of genres. So I do think that there's probably less comedy being made for that reason. I also think too that there's a lot of pushback on a lot of certain types of comedy in the last 10 years or so. For lack of a better term, sort of PC culture has sort of gone quite extreme in a number of ways, and comedians and people in the comedy space who were thriving before that with those types of comedies are probably a bit hesitant to journey into the space as it is now, because people are so critical and so quick to shut things down. So I think it's really difficult to make comedy today.
There's a sense of people don't really know if what they're going to say is going to be accepted, and that they fear they're going to offend at least one person with what they're going to say. Do you think that there's an element of people being scared of what others might think of them if they say something funny, or they fear they're going to offend someone else?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's what it's all about. I think it's, there are people who wholeheartedly embrace offending people, like Ricky Gervais and things like that, who sort of don't really care. And I really respect that. I think that everybody walks through life. They don't necessarily have the right to not be offended by absolutely everything they see in their entire life. Like, I think that's going to happen. When you walk out the door, you kind of take a risk to experience life, both good and bad. So I think when comedians are doing stuff, they are very terrified, because the online mob and people who get, that sort of rage culture where people are very, very instantaneously outraged. It's almost like a competition to be who can be the most outraged the fastest online. If you've ever read any comments on pretty much any post on the internet, there's not much positivity there. It's pretty negative,
So
pretty
hate
much straight
comments,
away.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think, people are worried about having their careers completely cancelled or ruined or changed or gone, just for saying one thing. So it's easier to say nothing. And who knows what's going to offend somebody.
Do you think we're going to be able to move past this kind of almost form of suppression?
I don't know. I think that it's probably used to be worse than it is now. I think it's sort of swinging back in the other direction a little bit, where people are a little bit tired of sort of constantly being outraged as an identity. So I'm hoping that there can be less of that and more, because the thing is that what it results in ultimately is censorship. And censorship is something that for many years was all about people being able to, it was pushing against people's freedoms. And now the argument is, I have to censor this thing so that I can be free to feel the way I want. So there's this really interesting, ironic kind of setup there for that whole thing about shutting things down. So I hope so. I think that people should be able to say what they want to say within reason. And that's the tricky bit. The within reason bit is different for everybody. But I don't see any type of comedy or pretty much anything you can make where you're not going to offend somebody. I mean, that's why we're all different.
No, thank you. It was certainly interesting because I think a lot of people want to be able to kind of find a movie that's funny these days, but really the only place you can turn to that is TikTok and YouTube. But obviously, when you read the comments on a lot of those posts, it's often, oh, why did she post this or why did they do that? Oh, it's a lot of hate comments. We're going to do a few rapid fire questions now. So, quick question, quick response. If you could have dinner with any producer or director, who would it be?
Denis Villeneuve.
Who has more to offer to filmmakers, Australia or America?
I'm going to have to say America, unfortunately. Australians, sorry.
What can we do to improve?
Start making films for audiences that they want to watch. That's probably the first thing we can do. I think our industry is too dependent on handouts and not dependent enough on an audience that's willing to pay for it. We keep asking why our films don't make any money because they're not made for audiences that want to pay money to see them. That's the honest answer. But people don't want to face that answer, in my opinion. So,
Best film of all time.
Empire Strikes Back.
Did you enjoy creative writing at school?
Yes, that was my favorite thing to do at school, actually. I spent a lot of time writing short stories and all kinds of stuff. That was great. I really loved doing that.
Outside of your very busy schedule, what's your favorite downtime activity?
Funnily enough, it's watching movies, but also I do enjoy
Surprise, surprise.
a cheese board. Yeah, I do enjoy a cheese board though, and a glass of wine. Also, so and hanging out with my buddies. So that's probably a combination of those things.
What director do you look up to the most?
Probably Steven Spielberg, as cliched as that is. He's done some pretty amazing things that people don't. I think we take Steven Spielberg for granted. He's done a lot of amazing things. And on the film business side as well, some pretty amazing things too. And he's also launched the careers of dozens of other filmmakers that people love too. So yeah, he's the man.
He's incredible. How do you eat a Freddo, head first or feet first?
Head first.
Okay, good. We have this joke at the radio station where we do like a weekly segment. If you eat it feet first, you're a psycho because they can like watch you eating them. Or if you eat it head
Right.
first, you're fine because you're just putting them out of their misery. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I mean, probably not too dissimilar to where I am now, but just working on bigger and more exciting things. You know, I think I'm really happy with how my parallel careers are all going. It'd be good if they'd moved a bit faster, but you know, that's always the way. So yeah, I mean, I just want to be creatively challenged and limited by that. That's the main thing I want to be limited by is like what's possible. How can I do better than my last project? That kind of thing.
And can you tell us about your new film, Nikki's Revenge, that you're working on with Spike Lee?
Yeah. So when I was at Cannes, I met a very talented filmmaker called Kristen St. John, an American filmmaker, and she's making a feature film called Nikki's Revenge, which Spike Lee is an executive producer. And I met Spike in Cannes, and I was talking to Kristen about some ways that I might be able to assist her from a production level on the executive producing side. Noticed the film was just really great, so I wanted to be involved. So what we're making is a short proof of concept film that we use as a kind of a marketing tool to get the feature film financed, and we're still trying to raise the money for that. So if anyone's interested in being involved in a film with Spike Lee and having first chance to invest in the feature film as well, we're very much looking for donations and investments in that project.
And where can people go to contribute to this new venture?
Yeah, there's a GoFundMe link.
Awesome.
So gofundme.com/invest in a Hollywood film.
It must be pretty cool working on a production with someone who was part of Inside Man and directed it.
Yeah, Spike is an interesting character, that's for sure. I haven't spent too much time with him, but he is one in a million, that's for sure, and super supportive of the project and wants to see it happen. So, yeah.
Over the past 5 years, so much has happened, and it's been great to catch up with you, Dan. Your insight has not only stayed the same, but also changed for the better and evolved. And I'm sure everyone listening today who is interested in getting into the film industry would have found this very valuable. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on Inspired by today.
Thanks so much, Isabella. Good to see you.